What class do we have?
First time. That looks like salad. Let's find out what these green zombies. First time. That looks like salad. So without further ado, let's make some mac and cheese. Here we go. I have gained weight, and I don't even know why. You guys know my weight's been spiraling out of control. Because my life is a disaster. There's no cure. This means right in your brain. I miss the old day. Yada 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 yada. Yada 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 yada. Yada 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 yada. TikTok.
Approximately 2 weeks ago, while sitting in his $2.3 million penthouse apartment, Nikocado Avocado would upload a video weighing himself to his channel with over 2.5 million subscribers.
352. I think not.
His weight of 352 pounds is in stark contrast to his beginning weight of between 150 and 160 pounds.
When I started mukbangs, I was 150 pounds, maybe 160. Can't really remember.
When he was a modest vegan living a fairly simple life in Colombia. He moved there way back in 2014 after meeting his then boyfriend Orlin in a vegan Facebook group for men. But problematically, Nikocado Avocado didn't have much to do in Colombia, so he began to upload videos of himself to the YouTube website, playing violin and discussing the many aspects of veganism.
This is my first ever mukbang. Mukbang. I actually don't know how to pronounce it, but anyways,
where he would state that prior to becoming a vegan, he considered himself somewhat overweight.
Most people that watch my channel know that I'm vegan for almost 4 years, like another month or two will be like 4-year mark. Totally changed my life. I used to be obeso. I used to be like this.
While it was certainly a benefit that veganism helped Nikocado lose weight and was assisting him in staying thin, as he continued to maintain the vegan diet, it would go from a blessing to a curse.
I rotted a tooth. I had low B12 deficiency. I developed hypoglycemia. I don't know if it's directly related to the veganism, but I never had that before.
At a later date, Nikocado explained that being vegan had resulted in numerous immediate health issues. In addition to this, Nikocado explained that he found the 2016 online vegan community to be extremely toxic.
Why do vegans have to make everything about veganism? Why? There's so much more to life than veganism.
And as a result, he ended up renouncing his vegan status and leaving the community of vegan YouTubers.
No other community have I ever seen it like this. I thought it was they're all vegans, but it's just vegans in general on YouTube. I gotta leave, you guys.
After a 1-month break, the first of many non-vegan mukbang videos would show up on the Nikocado Avocado channel, and while he had made the decision to begin eating meat, he would still maintain a relatively clean diet, often inclusive of vegetables and rice.
1 red onion, carrots, minus that green one, which we don't use. Broccoli, cauliflower, fresh peas.
Nikocado Avocado stuck out like a sore thumb as a mukbanger because in the beginning the video type was almost entirely dominated by females. Additionally, Nikocado would almost always have his pet parrot sit on his shoulder while he ate, the absurdity of which assisting him in standing out from the crowd. When discussing his first mukbang video, Nikocado Avocado would state, "My very first mukbang got like 50,000 views in a couple of weeks, which was a lot for me at the time, and everyone was asking when's the next mukbang, which ultimately resulted in the continuation of the series." However, as mukbangs became the dominant video type on his channel, his weight would begin to steadily increase. In The Psychology of Mukbang Watching, published in January 2020, the study found that the viewer's vicarious pleasure demanded a large quantity of unhealthy food to be consumed. And from a relatively uninformed outsider's perspective, the meta seems to be the bigger the better. No one wants to spend 2 minutes watching someone eat a bowl of cereal. The most popular videos go for more than half an hour and include ridiculously oversized portions, the reason for which being because it creates connection and possibly even a guilt-free environment, seeing other people eat very large portions of unhealthy food messily and open to public. For this reason, Nikocado Avocado began to eat more and more in every single video posted to the channel.
There's 45 here. We're gonna see how many we can eat. So, here we go. Let's start.
In addition to this, he will begin to swap out many of the clean, relatively healthy meals in exchange for fast food, seen in examples such as ex-vegan eats burger for the first time in 10 years, which was followed by 3 other fast food mukbangs and a 10,000 calorie challenge. 7 months after switching to full-time mukbang videos, Nikocado Avocado seemed to naively believe that he'd maintained his original weight of 160 pounds. However, while doing a mukbang at the Heart Attack Grill in Las Vegas, Nikocado Avocado would step on their scale, at which point he would be confronted with reality.
So let's see how much I weigh. I don't even know. I think 160, maybe 160. Weigh yourself here. So we're going to step right up. That has to be wrong. You guys, I'm 200 pounds.
When revisiting the article discussing the psychology of mukbang watching, the authors also claimed that mukbang videos affect viewers' perception of food consumption.
This will be database records to only be accessible by the currently logged in user. And that means before we make a reference to the database, we need to check the authentication state of the current user. We can use the on-off state change callback just like we did in the previous section. We'll set everything up when the user is logged in. And the first thing we'll do is create that reference to the database by calling db collection things. Now that we have that reference, we can register an event handler on the click event on our create thing button. There are several different ways you can create data, but when you have a reference to a collection, the add method will simply add a new document to that collection and automatically generate the unique ID. The add method takes a JavaScript object as its argument, and this is the actual data that will be saved on your document in the database. Now, the way we associate a document with a user is by making a reference to their user ID on the document itself. That way we can query all of the documents that have the corresponding user ID. From there, we'll add a name field to the document with just a random product name using Faker. Now, one other thing you might want to do is save a timestamp of when this document was created. A common pitfall when doing front-end development is to use a regular JavaScript date object. But what you should understand is that the date object is not always consistent on every machine, so what you should do for consistent timestamps is use the Firebase Firestore field value server timestamp. This will be evaluated by Firestore to ensure that the date is always the same across all client devices. At this point, we're able to create data in our database from the front-end application. If we pull up the app, making sure that we're logged in, and click on the Create Random Item button, we should see that item created in the database instantaneously. But the real magic of Firestore is being able to listen to these changes in real time in the front-end UI. And the way you do that is by making a query. Now, when you make a query in Firestore, it's going to return a function that you can use to unsubscribe from that query later on. It's not required, but a very good idea to name that variable something like unsubscribe, and then use it when the state of the app changes, like when the user signs out. Using our reference, we can then make a query by calling where the user ID equals the current user's user ID. That will give us only the documents that this particular user has created. To get a real-time stream of all the changes to this query, we call onSnapshot. But if we only wanted to read this data once, we could use get instead. With onSnapshot, we provide a callback function that will be called anytime the underlying data changes. It gives us access to the query snapshot, which is an object that contains an array of documents that we can use to update the UI with the most recent data. The way I'll handle it in this case is by taking the array of documents and mapping it down to an array of list items that we can show in the HTML. For each document that's returned in the query, we'll create a list item, and then inside that list item, we can get the actual data on the document by calling .data, and then we'll reference the name field. And then lastly, we'll update the HTML by setting the inner HTML of our things list to these items joined together as a string. Now when we go back to our demo, you can see that the things list is updated in the actual UI every time we create a new record. Now the cool thing about this is no matter where this data update takes place, whether it's on the server or some other application, it'll be updated in this UI as well. You can see when I delete all the documents here on the server, those changes are reflected instantaneously in the front-end app as well. So that was pretty easy, but it gets even easier when you use a front-end framework. Now, before we move on, there's a couple of other things you should know about Firestore. In many cases, you might want to make what's known as a compound query. That's when you chain multiple operations together on the same query. For example, we could do that here by adding the order by method to order by the created at field. But when we do that and go back to the application, you can see our data is no longer listed there. And if we open the console, we get an error message saying that we need a composite index. In order to scale infinitely in the cloud, certain queries need a composite index. So in this case, we can create it by simply following the link in the error message, and it will take us to the Firebase console to create the index to support that query. Now, the other thing to keep in mind that I've already mentioned is to make sure to unsubscribe from your data when it's no longer needed. For this feature, it would make sense to unsubscribe when the user is no longer logged in. So we're already checking for the user authentication state, which means we can just add an else statement here and unsubscribe if that unsubscribe function is defined. Now the final but most important thing to understand here is how security works. So even though we're filtering the items by the logged in user, they're still not secure. Anybody could run this code and hit the items that are privately owned by the logged in user. It's on the server database. Now the way we associate a document with a user is by making a reference to their user ID on the document itself. That way we can query all of the documents that have the corresponding user ID. Test mode, which means anybody can read or write to the database, and then we'll come back and set security rules for it later on. Now that that's done, let's get familiar with the Firestore Management Console. This is a place where you, the super admin developer, can manage any of the data in the database. The first thing we'll want to do is create a new collection. We'll give it a plural name, like things, and then inside that collection, we'll add the first document. Every document in a collection needs to have a unique ID. Firestore can create one automatically, or you can manually create one to handle different data modeling relationships. The document is where you store all of your data in a series of key value pairs, similar to a JavaScript object. This document might have a name field where the value is a string, and then a weight where the value is a number. You can name these fields whatever you want, but it's important to keep them consistent across documents because that's what you use to query them. For example, if we had multiple documents in this database, we can find this upside down pyramid icon here in the collection. This allows us to experiment with different queries. If we go ahead and open up the panel, we first choose a field to filter by, which in this case is weight. And then we have a number of different query operators we can use to handle the filtering. In this case, we want all the documents where the weight is greater than 5. When we apply this query, you can see it filters out just the one document where the weight is greater than 5. Now, since one of these documents has a weight of 5, we can make this an inclusive query by saying greater than or equal to 5. When we update the query, we now get both documents returned back to us. Now that you know a little bit about how Firestore works, let's take a look at how we can associate data to a user in our application. If we go into our HTML, you can see I have another section here with an unordered list where we'll show all the things that this currently logged in user has created. We'll give the user a way to create a new random thing in the database by simply clicking on this button. Here's a pro tip. If you want to create random fake data in your application, check out this library called Faker.js. It's a really quick and easy way to generate fake random data for testing. Now, if we go back into our JavaScript, we'll first make a reference to the Firebase Firestore SDK as the variable DB. Then we'll use browser APIs to grab our create thing button as well as the things list. Now, there are generally two things you need when accessing data from Firestore in real time. The first thing is a reference to the document or collection that you want to access, which we'll give a variable name of thingsref in this case. The reference is a starting point to create, read, update, and delete data at a specific point in the database. Now, when it comes to reading data in real time, our front-end UI will always react to changes that happen on the server. And that means we'll be subscribed to a stream of changes happening to the database. And therefore, we want to set a second variable here called unsubscribe so we can tell the app when to stop listening to this real-time stream. If you don't unsubscribe from your data, it could lead to memory